All right. So I titled this Wellness, What's That? And I titled it that way because I think that there's a lot of focus on weight, there's a lot of focus on the word obesity and overweight, and really I think that that takes away from the point of kind of holistic and making healthy lifestyle changes. So I'm hoping by the end of today, everybody will be able to understand how much health impacts adolescents, what exercise is, i.e. not just going to the gym, how fitness, nutrition, sleep are related to overall well-being, knowing what positive body language is, and being able to recognize where to get support and resources, as well as the last thing's kind of difficult, but understanding that weight management doesn't mean necessarily monitoring weight, which is a tough concept, I think, for a lot of people and a lot of our colleagues even to understand. So adolescence is a time when a lot of the life decisions that they make will impact them for the rest of their lives. This includes nutrition and physical activity choices. And we know, right, that we're hearing all around us that the obesity epidemic is something that's going on, and they use the word epidemic, which makes everybody really freaked out. And so I think it's our job as kind of the team that supports adolescents to focus on making some healthy, holistic lifestyle changes. And we know right now they're faced with a lot of temptation on social media, temptation online, temptation on advertisements. I mean, you can't get away from a lot of the advertisements that are supposed to be geared towards adults but are really targeting adolescents no matter where you go. And so it's important to focus on creating healthy habits that can help them in their long term. So exercise. I will say most of the adolescents that I see, the last thing they want to talk about is going to the gym and getting on a treadmill or getting on an elliptical. I mean, I kind of find that boring. I get bored after about 5 or 10 minutes, and I can't imagine what an adolescent feels like. And it's just like they're there, they're looking at everybody else around them on it, nobody's socializing, there's no interaction. So I tell adolescents exercise means a lot of different things, right? It can be going to the gym if that's exciting for you, and you can look at your YMCA, your local gyms, community centers like this, which have this most amazing pool I've ever seen. And you can figure out what activities your adolescent really enjoys doing. That can be sports, that can be obstacle courses, anything from swimming, volleyball, and basketball. There's also a lot of after-school activities, and if your school doesn't have a lot of after-school programs, looking into other schools in the surrounding area and seeing what they have to offer. And it's important, I think, for this key, because I have a lot of adolescents that come in, actually, and they enjoy dance, they enjoy ultimate frisbee. They don't necessarily enjoy sports that are offered at school, but it's some of the after-school programs that are more exciting for them. And I think that's really the key in getting your youth to be more physically active. The hard part, right, is that we're in the Pacific Northwest, so it's not sunny and 80 degrees every day. Even today, right, it's sunny, but it's really foggy and really cold, which is not as exciting for people to be outside. So I think it's also good to come up with what I call like a rainy day plan. So what you do when the weather's not so great outside. The good thing is that there's a lot of malls around. There's bowling. Here there's indoor climbing, which you don't necessarily have everywhere. And then roller skating. And so figuring out what activities your adolescent likes to do and what's around you. That way you have your kind of rainy day plan. The other thing is video games are really popular, right? They're a lot more exciting than listening to somebody talk. And so I've toyed with the idea of exergaming. I don't know, have any of you ever heard that term before? So it's using some of the video games that are more physically active, so like Xbox or like Dance Dance Revolution or Wii Fit. It's kind of plus minus with some of the patients. Like they like the Xbox for doing like interactive games with their peers, but not so much for physical activity. But it might be something that if your youth is into that you could see if the whole family can take part in. And then the last thing I put was competition in question with a question mark. And the reason I put that with a question mark is sometimes as adults, we like to do friendly competition, but that might not be as exciting for your adolescent. So it's important to figure out what they like and what motivates them. And then the whole family can help make those changes together. All right. So some of the benefits of exercise is focus. So it can help with memory and problem solving. All of these things can be helpful in school. It can help with your general just feeling happy. And that can be, some people like to exercise in the morning, some people like to exercise in the afternoon, but it's kind of the consistent exercising that can help boost mood. It sends off some really good endorphins that are good for your body. We all know that it can help decrease blood pressure and type 2 diabetes and cholesterol, but that's also not as exciting for your adolescent to hear. And sometimes with us focusing on those conditions, it can actually be fearful for your adolescent, because then they become driven with, oh my gosh, is this what's going to happen to me? So I focus more on the school, making your adolescent feel happier, and then the last thing is helping with sleep, which can be counterintuitive because sometimes you feel energized after being active, but it's really the kind of consistent physical activity that's helpful with that. All right, so Dr. Evans talked about sleep, and I know there's a sleep handout in the back. So sleep, we know, can help with energy, focus, mood, and weight management. I know I told you that I don't focus necessarily on weight, but I did put it up there as one of the topics. Does anybody know how much sleep your adolescent is supposed to get?
10 hours.
10 hours, nice. That's exactly what it is. So I always tell people anywhere from about 8 to 10 hours, and your adolescent is going to tell you how much they need. I think it's really hard because a lot of adolescents are probably getting about 6 hours of sleep, and that's just based on by the time they finish their homework and their school activities, and then they've got to get up at 6 a.m. to get ready for the bus and head to school. And if you think about that, they've got a sleep deficit then every single day, which will affect their mood, which will affect their focus, which will affect their overall well-being. So if you can keep in mind that your adolescent most need about 10 hours of sleep. I say 8 to 10 because everybody's a little bit different. That can help you understand maybe how their mood might be at the end of the week when they're not so happy that they've only gotten 6 hours of sleep every night. So I'm going to say some things, and I want you to tell me if it's good or bad for sleep. Caffeine. Bad. All right. So that, and then exercise. Good. What about mood or stress? Bad. And then what about screen time? Bad. All right. So caffeine, everybody knew it was bad, right? Because it makes you alert. It's why we all drink it in the morning. It's why we have it here, and I even had a cup before having this presentation. It helps us get a boost. But we're also in an era, right, where there's a Starbucks on every corner. You can't get away from it, which means there's a lot of those frappuccinos, etc., that are tasty, right? And they're even colorful sometimes. So they're supposed to be adult beverages, but are really geared towards adolescents. And we forget that they have caffeine in them. So if your adolescent after school has a frappuccino or has one of those beverages on their way home, they might be more energized and have difficulty falling asleep. And so it's important to keep in mind that those beverages can do that, as well as sodas. Exercise, I talked about, can help with sleep. And then mood and stress. So we've all had bad days, right? And when you have a bad day and you're laying down, your mind just keeps racing and going and going. Well, imagine not getting enough sleep, right? Because you're only getting that 6 hours of sleep every night. You've had a rough day at school. You've maybe gotten in an argument with one of your friends or your teachers. And then you've got to go to bed, and you have nobody to talk to or debrief about how your day went. So you're really stressed. You're laying there, and you're like, I need to go to sleep. Now I'm stressed because it's been an hour. So now I've only got 5 hours of sleep, and I've got to get up at 6 a.m. And then that vicious cycle continues. And every adolescent's different, but it's important to keep in mind that this might be impacting your adolescent, and it kind of helps you understand maybe that morning when they wake up and they're really ticked off and they're really rude to you in the morning or they don't want to talk, that's probably impacted by whatever happened the night before. And then screen time. We cannot get away from screens, right? Cell phones are everywhere, laptops, tablets, computers, TVs. You're in any waiting room and there's a TV or a screen there. I will say that these are one of the things where it comes to like negotiating with your adolescent, and I don't know, Dr. Evans, is somebody else going to be talking about screen time? Perfect. Dr. Evans is going to talk about screen time, so I'll let Dr. Evans go into more detail about that. But just knowing that screens are not just a television, not just a computer, and not just a phone, but they're anything with a screen on it. All right. So the next thing I'm going to go into is some of the benefits of nutrition. How many of you know your vitamins? kind of plus minus. Yeah, I was kind of plus minus too, right? Until I did have to do a lot of reading on it. And I feel like from an adult perspective, it's nice to think about the vitamins and what foods have specific vitamins in it. And from a kid perspective, where it's helpful is to talk about the things that bother kids, right? So acne, that's really annoying. Adolescents definitely have issues with acne. What are some foods that have high vitamin A in it, which can help with acne? You've got kale, sweet potatoes, and carrots. You have to also think about like these foods in their raw form, probably not the most exciting, right? So how can you make them more exciting? Has anybody ever made kale chips before? Yeah. So trying out different things. You can almost make kale chips like kale popcorn. You could do some fun things with sweet potatoes and carrots with mixing them together. You could even do kale, sweet potatoes, and carrots combined with like an egg on it. So just trying out different things, especially in an era, right, where we've got like a ton of like Iron Chef or like all these like cooking shows. You can almost make it fun and make it like a cooking challenge. How many different recipes can you come up with these ingredients? Vitamin B1, so we talked about concept of school, right, and sleep and exercise impacting school. Well, nutrition impacts school as well. So for memory and concentration, you've got your green peas, your nuts, broccoli, and spinach. Probably a tough to combine all of these things together, but again, like the previous things that I mentioned, figure out some fun ways that you can engage your adolescent. And I would also caution, find out which one of these your adolescent likes instead of forcing them to eat something that they don't like. Because if you force them to eat something that they don't like, the chances of them wanting to eat it in the future are pretty low. But if you can figure out kind of some fun ways and recipes to make it more tasty, that'll improve the chances of them wanting to have it. So you can saute some of these things with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of pepper, black pepper, and salt. You can try them with salads, in particular using some nuts in salads. It's good protein. Vitamin C, we all know, right, that you can get, now I forgot what it's called, but the vitamin C that can help you fight off a cold.
Emergency.
Yes, emergency. Thank you. You can also get it from foods. So thinking about the different foods that you have that are available that can help with that are your citrus fruits, so you have your oranges, spinach, kale. Notice that there's some of these foods that have multiple vitamins in them. And then B3 with helping with that energy. And that's more of your nuts and avocado. I will say it is tough to get some of these foods depending on what time of year it is, which is why it's nice to get a wide list of foods. That way, depending on what time of year it is, it's more accessible at certain grocery stores, and then you don't have to worry about paying that $2 for one avocado, because if you think about it, then everybody's going to get like one little slice, and that's not going to be too helpful. The other thing I would say is that if your child does not have a nut allergy, there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with nuts, including like if you buy them in bulk, which can be cheaper than getting them in the peanut butter form. You can blend them and try different things with like mimicking peanut butter with adding stuff to it, or doing like nuts, peanut butter with apples or celery, all sorts of stuff. I joke sometimes with my patients that if they come up with enough recipes that they should create a cookbook, and then I get 10% of the royalties because I'm the one that gave them the idea. All right. So I want you to look at some of these ads. And I want you to tell me what you think about them. Are these some positive ads, negative ads? Heads are shaking, so I'm going to say that's negative. Yeah. And what do you notice about them?
Just the word
Diet mentality.
Yeah.
Well, and you have diets with a very thin-looking person.
And it says it's for teens, right? Who's decided that it's healthy to do some restrictive dieting for teens or cleanse for teens, right? Certainly not physicians that have done a lot of research, certainly not dietitians that they focus on this, but probably whatever pharmaceutical company owns the medicine that's helping you lose the weight. The other thing that I would say is here's an ad that was supposed to be well-meaning, but I want you to quickly read it and let me know if you were an adolescent how that would make you feel. Scared?
Very critical of yourself.
Yeah. Very body shaming, right?
Where you look in the mirror and look for any possible fault.
Yeah.
Depressing.
Yeah.
Was that in a child's magazine or an adult magazine?
What was that? It was, yeah, it was on billboards.
Um,
Yeah, oh my gosh,
It's on what?
right?
Billboards.
So when I say that advertisements and are everywhere, right? They're literally everywhere. And if I was an adolescent and somebody's constantly talking to me about weight, constantly body shaming me, and I literally then am walking down the street with my friend and this is what I see, you're gonna have a pretty crummy day, right? And you have nobody to really talk to about this because everybody's telling you that you need to lose weight. So I think that this I think is one of the things that I caution people about language and how language and images can really negatively impact our adolescents, even if we're well-meaning. All right, so what are some things that we hear that we think can negatively impact somebody's body image?
Watching shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians and things like that, very, not our life.
Yeah, so it's a big focus right on physical appearance and that it's all about what your body physically looks like, not so much about health and what your body internally may be like, yeah.
The popular kids in a lot of TV shows are very well put together. I mean, they have the perfect clothes, perfect hair, the perfect body, the perfect friends, and if you don't have all of that, then you will not be popular.
Yeah, and you know, there's no focus on the fact that they've got this huge team behind them that's helping them be that way. And there's also, I would say, there's not a focus on the different body sizes and what's normal based on whatever your family's body size might be, whatever your racial or ethnic background might be. And I think that, and so then we get focused on whatever this one type of perfect body must be. And then the last thing I would add is fad diets, which you get everywhere. So what are some fads that we know are going on right now? Juicing is a major thing that's going on right now. Yeah. What else? What was that?
Keto.
Yep, the keto, paleo diet. Yeah. Which if you think about that, all these diets are about restriction. Juicing, it's who can only have liquid every single day for all meals and all snacks. And then you get some major diarrhea to go with that. How fun is that, right? The keto diet or the paleo diet, that's just another name for the Atkins diet. And if you think about that over time, right, we talked about the foods that are helpful for energy, memory, etc. You need to have a balanced meal to be able to focus in school. And if you're doing some restriction, you can't keep that up anyways. Your body will get really confused. By the time you reintroduce those foods, your body will process it in the same way that it would have before. So I think that there's a lot of focus on short-term quick weight loss and not focus on really what's the goal for long-term for somebody. So this is called the Biopsychosocial Model. It's just a fancy name for letting us know that there's a lot of different things that impact somebody's body shape. There's their biological makeup. There may be going on with whatever's going on with their mental well-being, and then there could be their social situation. I think this is important because I think a lot of times blame will happen with patients or with families, like, why don't you just do this? If you just did this, then your child would be like this. And really that's not helpful for anybody. And if you think about all the different things that impact somebody's body shape, whoever's telling you that hasn't really thought about this then. And I would say that if that's the message that you're getting from somebody, I would challenge them with all the different things that can impact somebody's body shape. All right, so this is the medical approach. If this is very different than what you're experiencing, let me know. But this is what I think is going on out in the community, is that a lot of families are working with their primary doctor on lifestyle changes. They may or may not be referred to a community program or a community dietitian. And then sometimes they get referred to Seattle Children's, where at Seattle Children's, the main thing that we do is no weight talk, which I think takes families a long time to understand. Well, I was referred to you for obesity or quote unquote weight management, but now you're telling me that I can't talk about weight with my kid and you're not gonna talk about weight with my kid. And what I tell families is, I know this is gonna sound really tough, but you just have to trust us, that if we focus on fitness, if we focus on nutrition, if we focus on mental well-being and social support, that everything will eventually fall into place. And sometimes that takes about 6 months for that trust to happen, and I get that, because it's a very different message than what you've been getting from before. But at our team, you meet with the medical provider, then we work with nutrition, a fitness specialist, social work, and or a therapist. And then we also have an intensive fitness program that, depending on whatever the patient's needs are, that we can refer to them. The one thing I will say is that we have a general idea of what we do for most of my patients, but we also individualize it based on whatever the patient's needs are. And we often try and get the entire family and whoever is a part of that patient's support system on board with whatever the plan is. Because sometimes what happens is that the child or the adolescent has been told what to do and what changes they need to make. And sometimes, even though everybody around them is very well-meaning, nobody else around them is making those changes. And that can be pretty isolating. And so what we try and do is we want to make sure that everybody's making the same changes so that the adolescent feels supported, because all these changes are healthy for everybody to make no matter what. The other thing we do is motivational interviewing and strength-based model. So these are kind of some medical talk, medical lingo, but all that means is that the medical providers and the medical team should be focusing on the adolescent and the family, figuring out what their strengths and goals are, and then using those strengths and goals to make change. And if that's not what's happening, then I would request that something like that happen, because there's plenty of studies that show that if we do that, the chances of the adolescent and the family making changes and having those changes last for the rest of their life is much better than if the physician or the dietitian or the fitness specialist is just telling the adolescent what to do. We also do labs and physical exam, and we sometimes do medications. But the main thing we also do is that we do a full team support, and so that even if you're not seeing every single team member every month, sometimes there's staggered visits so that you get that support from a team member that's all communicating and saying the same message, almost monthly, I would say. So here are some resources that I've gathered. Let me know if there's some questions that you have about these resources or if there's additional resources that you've heard of. But we have the Seattle Children's Wellness Program, which lasts, it's up to age 11.5. We have the YMCA ACT program, which is at everybody's local community, and that's, I believe, 8 to age 14. And then we have our Seattle Children's Adolescent Medicine program, which is age 12 to 21. And then there's also the intensive program, but our program has to refer to that program, which is why I didn't put it up there initially. And then you've got, like we talked about, community centers, sports programs, after-school programs, and then if your physician has a local dietitian that they work with, or a trainer, with some of the stuff and the messaging that I had talked about before, that would be what I would be asking those providers is, what is your approach to this, and have you ever heard about these other approaches? Would you be willing to incorporate this into your model? If you all want my slides, I'm happy for you to have them, because I also have some online sources for recipe examples that you can do with your youth, some physical activity examples, and then some books if you want some more learning about like how to really engage your youth and do what we call motivational interviewing. So hopefully at least they can get the resources page, if not the other slides.